Okay, let's unpack this. We've all been there, right? You have this goal, something you really want to change. Maybe it's exercising consistently, learning a new skill, writing more often, whatever it is. You feel motivated, you put in the effort, perhaps for a few days or a week or two, and it just doesn't seem to stick. You feel frustrated, like you're back at square one. Why is it so incredibly hard to build good habits and, break the bad ones, even when the desire is strong?
Well, what the source material dives into immediately is that often it's not really about your lack of ability or even how much you want it. The problem might just be that you haven't yet crossed what's called the plateau of latent potential.
The plateau of latent potential. That phrase really sticks with you. Help us visualize that. You mentioned the ice cube analogy.
Yeah, it's a perfect way to understand it, really clear. Imagine you have an ice cube and the room is cold, right?
Right.
Below freezing. You start slowly heating the room. The temperature creeps up 25 degrees, 28, 30, then 31 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, you've applied heat, you've done work, but the ice cube, well, it still looks exactly the same. Zero visible change. It feels like nothing is happening, and that's the plateau. But all that energy isn't wasted. It's being absorbed, stored up. Then, the moment the temperature hits 32 degrees, the melting point, bam, the state changes instantly. The ice melts.
Oh, I see. So all that effort below 32 degrees is the invisible work kind of building up beneath the surface. And then what looks like sudden overnight success, the ice melting, the habit finally clicking, the results appearing red, is just the visible output of all that stored potential finally reaching its critical point.
Exactly. It really reframes that early frustration, doesn't it? You're not failing. You're doing the necessary work that accumulates below the surface, waiting for the threshold where visible change happens. That's the power of the plateau of latent potential.
That really resonates. Yeah. So, for you listening, our mission in this deep dive is to take the key insights from the source material, these powerful ideas about how habits truly work, and build a framework for change that you can actually use, leveraging concepts like this plateau.
And one of the most, I think, fundamental shifts the source proposes is moving the focus away from what you want to achieve your goals
Hmm.
and instead really thinking about who you want to become, your identity.
Okay, so it's not just I want to run a marathon or I want to write a book chapter, but thinking I want to be a runner or I want to be a writer.
Precisely. Because ultimately, behavior that clashes with your self-identity is incredibly difficult to maintain over time. It just won't stick. If you want to be, say, financially secure, but fundamentally see yourself as someone who enjoys constant consumption, those identities are at war.
Yeah.
If you want to be healthy, but you prioritize immediate comfort above all else, sticking to exercise or healthy eating will be a constant uphill battle. You have to address the underlying beliefs about the kind of person you are.
And this is where that powerful concept of casting votes for your identity comes in. That's such a great idea.
Yeah, this is one of the most useful mental models, I think. Every single action you take, no matter how small it seems, is like casting a vote for the type of person you are or wish to become. You might think one tiny action doesn't matter, but it's concrete evidence, proof. Each time you write a single sentence, you're casting a vote for being a writer. Each time you do one push-up, you're voting for being an athlete. Each time you practice a scale on an instrument, you're voting for being a musician.
So it's not the outcome of the single action itself, but the fact that the action provides proof of your desired identity. It's evidence for yourself. Meaningful change isn't about some giant leap. It's about accumulating these small pieces of evidence day after day. It shifts the focus from just having something to fundamentally becoming someone.
That's the core insight, yeah. The practical pathway to changing your identity according to the source is actually deceptively simple. First, you decide the type of person you want to be. Second, you prove it to yourself with these small wins by consistently casting those votes. Your identity isn't this fixed thing written in stone. You have the power in every moment, through your choices, to reinforce the identity you truly desire.
That makes so much sense. It turns the process into something you can do right now, today. So, okay, once you have that vision of who you want to become, how do you actually make those new actions, those votes, happen consistently? The source breaks down the fundamental engine driving all habits, the habit loop.
Yes, exactly. It's a four-stage process the brain uses to learn and automate behavior. Cue, craving, response, and reward.
Cue, craving, response, reward. Okay, let's walk through what each of those means in the brain's world. The cue first.
Right. The cue is the initial trigger. It's a piece of information from your environment that predicts a reward is coming. For our ancestors, this might have been seeing berries or hearing a predator, simple survival stuff. Today, the cues are often more complex. Maybe it's a notification sound predicting social connection, or walking into the kitchen predicting a snack. These modern cues often predict what we call secondary rewards like status, money, praise, or just satisfaction, but they're still ultimately rooted in those primal needs.
Okay, so the cue grabs your attention, and that immediately leads to the craving. Is that step two?
That's step two. The craving is the motivational force. It's the anticipation, the desire for the reward that the cue predicts. And this is key. You don't crave the habit itself. You crave the state it delivers. You don't crave scrolling social media. You crave the potential connection or the escape from boredom.
Got it. And then the response is the actual habit, the physical or mental action you take, the doing part,
Right, that's the action.
which leads to the final stage, the reward.
The reward. This satisfies the initial craving. But crucially, it also teaches your brain whether this particular action, this loop, was worth remembering for the future. It closes the loop, signaling, hey, this worked, or nah, don't bother.
And the source makes it really clear that all four stages are essential. You need all of them. If the cue isn't noticeable, you won't start. If the craving isn't strong enough, you won't be motivated. If the response is too difficult, you physically can't do it. And if the reward isn't satisfying, you won't repeat it. Simple as that.
Exactly right. Your brain is essentially a prediction machine, constantly scanning the environment, noticing cues, and learning what behaviors lead to satisfying rewards. And with enough repetition, it gets incredibly efficient at this, highlighting relevant information almost automatically. Think about like a radiologist who learns to spot subtle tumors on an X-ray after seeing thousands of scans, or maybe a hairdresser who instantly notices split ends. Their brains have been trained by repetition to see specific cues automatically.
But that automaticity, while efficient, can also work against us with bad habits, right? We just do them without thinking.
Absolutely. As habits become automatic, we often perform them without any conscious thought. We just sort of do them. We lose awareness of what we're actually doing. It's like driving your commute on autopilot and suddenly arriving without really remembering the turns you made. Or
Yes.
that great example from the source to the wife calling out everything before leaving. Keys, wallet, glasses, husband. Verbalizing forces awareness onto something that might otherwise be completely non-conscious. Our lack of self-awareness is a huge barrier to changing habits we don't like.
So the very first step in any behavior change isn't willpower, it's awareness. You have to see the habit before you can change it.
Precisely. That's why tools like the habit scorecard, where you literally list out everything you do each day, become so powerful. Or techniques like pointing and calling, which forces you to verbalize an action. They pull those non-conscious habits out into the open, into conscious awareness.
Okay, so once you're aware of your habits and you know who you want to become, how do you actually build those new habits? This is where the source introduces the practical framework, the 4 laws of behavior change.
Yes, and this framework maps directly onto those 4 stages of the habit loop we just talked about. The first law is make it obvious, which addresses the cue stage.
Make it obvious. Okay. And the source emphasizes that cues are the most powerful triggers for behavior, especially visual cues. Is that right?
Yeah, our vision is incredibly dominant. It's something like 10 million out of the 11 million sensory receptors in the human body are dedicated to sight. It's huge. So what you see in your environment has a massive impact on what you do. A small change in your surroundings can lead to a really big shift in your behavior.
This really underlines the importance of environment design then, shaping your space.
Absolutely. You need to curate your space. Make the cues for good habits prominent and visible. Put the book you want to read on your pillow. Set out your running shoes by the door. By making the cue obvious, you make the desired behavior much more likely to happen. This is part of why studies like the one with British exercisers show that simply having a specific plan and implementation intention, like I will exercise on day at time and place, more than doubled their workout rate compared to just being motivated. They made the cue, the time and place specific and obvious.
And habit stacking is another way to leverage existing obvious cues, right? Build on what you already do.
Yes, exactly. You take a habit you already do consistently and simply stack the new desired habit immediately after. Like, after I pour my morning coffee, I will read 1 page. Or after I get into bed, I will say one thing I'm grateful for. Maybe after I put on my running shoes, I will text a friend my route. You're using the momentum of an existing behavior as the cue for the new one.
Okay, that makes sense. So if making good habits obvious works by making the cues visible, how do you tackle bad habits using this first law? Just do the opposite.
That's the inversion. Make it invisible. Hide the cues of your bad habits. Reduce exposure. If you snack mindlessly in front of the TV, Put the snacks away in a cupboard, or better yet, don't buy them in the first place.
Mm.
If you waste time on your phone, put it in another room or in a drawer when you need to focus. It's significantly easier to avoid a bad habit when you don't have to constantly battle the obvious trigger staring you in the face. You're creating a more disciplined environment that requires less willpower in the moment.
The story about the Vietnam veterans and heroin addiction is such a powerful illustration of this environmental effect.
It really highlights how much environment matters, yeah. Soldiers who were addicted over there often found that when they returned home to a completely different environment, their addiction just dissolved, often without specific treatment. The radical change in environment removed all the familiar cues and triggers associated with the drug use, making it much harder to maintain the habit. Changing habits can actually be easier in a new environment for precisely this reason you escape the old triggers.
Wow. Okay, so we've made it obvious how to start. Law 1. How do we make it attractive enough to feel that craving and desire? That's Law 2. Make it attractive.
Right. This relates to the craving stage of the loop. Habits become attractive because they create this dopamine-driven feedback loop in the brain. But what's fascinating is that the dopamine spike isn't just about getting the reward. It's often strongest during the anticipation of the reward, that feeling of wanting. That anticipation is what drives the motivation to act. Think of like lab animals working tirelessly just for the possibility of a reward, or the addictive pull of slot machines with their variable payouts fueling that anticipation.
So to make a habit attractive, you need to somehow build that sense of anticipation and desire around it. How do you engineer that?
Well, temptation bundling is one great strategy. You link an action you need to do with an action you want to do. For example, after I finish making these prospecting calls, need, I will listen to my favorite podcasts, want. Or only when I'm on the exercise bike, need, I get to watch my favorite Netflix show. You're leveraging something you find inherently attractive as an immediate reward for doing something less attractive.
And social influence plays a massive role here too, right? The people around us.
Absolutely huge. We are deeply wired to conform and seek acceptance from our tribe. So, join a group or culture where your desired behavior is the normal, expected behavior. If everyone around you values fitness, working out becomes more attractive and just, easier to stick with. The source mentions that example of the MIT robotics class, where so many students ended up becoming astronauts. Being surrounded by that level of ambition and work ethic makes those habits attractive by association. We soak up qualities from the people closest to us. And think about those famous Asch conformity experiments.
Oh, yeah, where people agreed with wrong answers just to fit in.
Exactly. People would agree with clearly wrong answers just to conform with the group. Most days, the desire for approval and respect is a powerful motivator, making it feel more attractive to be wrong with the crowd than right alone.
So finding your tribe, essentially, where your desired habits are celebrated, not questioned, makes sense. And the inversion of make it attractive. How do you make bad habits unattractive?
Make it unattractive. This is largely about reframing how you think about a bad habit, or even a difficult good habit. Change your internal dialogue. Shift from, I have to go for a run, to, I get to go for a run because my body is capable. Feel the opportunity, not the obligation, or I get to save this money because it's building my freedom. This shifts your perspective from seeing it as a burden to seeing it as an opportunity. It reprograms your brain's prediction about the experience, making it feel less like a chore.
You're changing the story you tell yourself about the habit. Okay, moving on to Law 3. Make it easy.
This tackles the response stage, getting the action done. The core idea here is that what makes a behavior automatic is repetition, not just time passing. You know the saying, neurons that fire together wire together, that's Hebb's law. The more times you perform a behavior, the stronger the neural pathways become, making it progressively easier and more automatic each time. Frequency matters.
So to make a good habit stick, you need to make it as effortless as possible, especially at the start. Reduce the friction.
Exactly. Reduce the friction. Make good habits convenient. Put your vitamins right next to your water glass so you see them. Set up your workspace so it's ready to go the moment you sit down. Think about the principles of Japanese lean manufacturing, removing waste and wasted motion to improve efficiency. Apply that to your habits. Remove the wasted steps between you and the action you want to take. Is the gym on your commute path? That's less friction than going out of your way.
And this ties into priming the environment, preparing things in advance.
Yes, it's about preparing your space beforehand to make the next action easier. Lay out your workout clothes the night before. Chop vegetables for dinner ahead of time. And this isn't just about making good habits easy, it's also about adding friction to bad ones. Put your phone in another room at night if you scroll too much. Hide the tempting snacks. As the source notes, even a little bit of friction can be enough to stop an unwanted behavior in its tracks.
It's about mastering the decisive moment. That's a great phrase.
That's a brilliant concept, yeah. In any habit sequence, there's usually one small choice, one pivot point that has an outsized impact on the rest of the sequence. For the author, it was changing into his workout clothes. Once that one small thing was done, everything else, driving to the gym, doing the actual workout, became much easier. It was the cab that got him to the gym. Identify that decisive moment for your habits and focus on making that specific step easy.
And if even that decisive moment feels too big, there's the 2-minute rule. I love this one.
Such a simple yet powerful technique. The idea is to scale down any new habit to a version that takes less than 2 minutes to complete. Read for 30 minutes becomes read one page. Study for an hour becomes review notes for 2 minutes. Run 3 miles becomes put on my running shoes. The goal isn't necessarily to achieve the full task initially. It's to master the start of the habit, make showing up easy, and get the repetition going.
And for making good habits nearly foolproof and bad habits almost impossible, you can use automation, right? Take willpower out of it.
This is incredibly effective because it bypasses the need for willpower entirely, or at least reduces it dramatically. Use technology or one-time decisions to lock in future behavior. Automatic savings deductions, website blockers, healthy meal delivery subscriptions, things that just happen. The historical example of the cash register is fascinating. It basically automated ethical behavior by making it incredibly difficult for employees to steal from the till without it being obvious. These one-time smart choices can deliver continuous positive returns with basically no ongoing effort from you.
Though, as the source points out, there's a potential downside to all this convenience and automation, too. We can get lazy.
There is. Technology often makes the lowest effort, easiest tasks, the most convenient, endless scrolling on social media, instant food delivery, binge-watching shows. This can nudge us towards constantly choosing immediate, easy gratification over the more difficult but ultimately more rewarding actions needed for long-term growth and well-being. Something to be aware of.
So the inversion of make it easy is, naturally, make it difficult. Increase the friction for bad habits.
And a great way to do that is through commitment devices. These are choices you make in the present that control or restrict your actions in the future. You're basically locking your future self into a better path. Victor Hugo locking away his clothes so he couldn't go outside until he finished writing his book. That was a dramatic example. But smaller things work too, like buying food in individual packages instead of family size, setting up a website blocker you can't easily disable, joining a voluntary self-exclusion list from a casino or betting site. These make it harder to backslide into bad habits when temptation strikes.
It sounds like you're essentially just increasing the friction, making the bad choice harder than the good one.
Exactly. And using an accountability partner or a habit contract, like that example of Ryan Harris who agreed to pay his trainer or his wife if he missed a workout. That's a form of commitment device that adds an immediate cost, making the bad habit feel more difficult or even slightly painful in the moment. It ups the stakes.
Which leads us perfectly into the fourth and final law, make it satisfying. Gotta feel good, right?
This law is absolutely crucial because it addresses the reward stage, and this is key. While the first 3 laws get you to do the behavior this time, the 4th law is what ensures you repeat it in the future. It closes the loop effectively. The problem, as we touched on, is that the rewards for many good habits, think health, wealth, knowledge, are often delayed. You don't see the payoff immediately. And our brains, they are wired for immediate gratification. We want the reward now.
So you need to find a way to add some kind of immediate satisfaction to a good habit, especially when you're starting out, to bridge that gap.
Precisely. The cardinal rule of behavior change is fundamental here. What is immediately rewarded is repeated. What is immediately punished is avoided. You need to engineer some immediate feeling of success or satisfaction, however small, to keep you motivated while those delayed rewards are building up in the background.
Habit tracking is a great example of this, right? Seeing your progress.
Yes. It's perfect. Keeping a visual record of your habits, checking off a box, seeing a streak grow on a calendar, does a few things. It creates an immediate visual cue of progress, which is motivating in itself. Seeing that chain, not wanting to break it, and the act of recording it feels satisfying right after completing the habit. It's instant proof that you're casting those votes for your desired identity. Feels good.
But the source also gives a stern warning about tracking something called Goodhart's Law.
Yeah, this is an important check. Goodhart's law essentially states, when a measure becomes a target, it ceases to be a good measure. Meaning, if you become so focused on the number you're tracking, be it steps on your Fitbit, pages written, hours worked, that you lose sight of the purpose behind the habit. You can start optimizing for the wrong thing. You might work long hours but on meaningless tasks just to hit the hours target, or crash diet dangerously for a number on the scale while sacrificing actual health. Just because something is easily measurable doesn't automatically make it the most important thing. The tracking should guide you, not consume you or distort your behavior. Keep perspective.
So track, but with intention and perspective.
Got it. And key actionable advice from the source, if you do track. Never miss twice. Don't aim for perfection, aim for consistency. Don't break the chain if you can help it, but if you slip up, get back on track immediately the next day.
Exactly. Don't let one missed day turn into two, then a week. And just like commitment devices add friction to bad habits, accountability partners and habit contracts can add an immediate consequence, a social or financial punishment to missing a good habit. This makes the avoidance of the good habit immediately unsatisfying, which paradoxically reinforces the desired behavior.
Okay, those are the 4 laws. Powerful stuff. Beyond these laws, the source also touches on some fascinating nuances of habit change and mastery, right?
Yeah.
It's not just the laws. Right, there's more context. One is understanding how personality and genetics play a role in finding your game. What works for one person might not work for another. Genes influence almost every trait, shaping what feels easier or harder for you. There's an important explore-exploit trade-off here. Spend some time exploring different habits and activities, try things out, but then focus your energy on exploiting the ones that align well with your natural inclinations and strengths. Play to your strengths.
And while luck, like being born with the specific physique of a Michael Phelps or a runner like Hisham El Grouge, definitely plays a role, you're not doomed if you don't win the genetic lottery.
No, not at all. Because you have the agency to create your own game, a game where you can win by being different, not just by trying to be better at something everyone else is doing in the same way. Combine your unique skills to create a niche where you stand out. The example given is the Dilbert cartoonist Scott Adams. He leveraged his okay drawing ability, his good sense of humor, and his business background. None were world-class alone, but the combination was unique and powerful. A truly masterful person often creates a new game where their unique strengths become the advantage.
That's really interesting. Another reality of mastery, though, is that it requires practice and practice. Well, it can become boring sometimes. The novelty wears off.
It really does. And this is often where the difference between professionals and amateurs shows up most clearly. Amateurs tend to only show up when they feel motivated or excited. Professionals, they stick to the schedule. They show consistently, even when it's tedious, even when it's difficult, even when they're bored. They adhere to a standard and a process, not just a fleeting feeling.
So how do you stay engaged when the excitement inevitably fades? How do you push through the boredom?
Well, one key is to try and operate in the Goldilocks rule zone. Find the sweet spot. Work on tasks that are of just manageable difficulty. They should be challenging enough to hold your interest, but not so hard that you get discouraged and get up. The sweet spot is often described as where you have about a 50-50 chance of succeeding at the task right now. That keeps you engaged. Variable rewards, like we mentioned with slot machines, can also help prevent boredom and amplify cravings. But the Goldilocks zone is more about keeping the task itself appropriately challenging and interesting.
Then there's that constant internal battle we all face between immediate gratification and delayed returns. Our brains fighting themselves.
Yeah, this is a big one. Our brains evolved for an immediate return environment. Our ancestors survived by focusing on present threats and rewards, finding food now, escaping danger now. But modern society is largely a delayed return environment. Think about saving for retirement, studying for a degree, building a business, eating healthy foods. The payoff is way down the road. And that immediate pleasure of scrolling social media or eating junk food almost always wins in the moment against the abstract future reward unless we're conscious of it. You have to be aware of this conflict and actively question actions that provide immediate pleasure but don't align with the future person you want to become. Instant gratification is a powerful force working against your long-term goals. You have to manage it.
And finally, the importance of reflection and review. Stepping back and looking at what you're doing.
This is so crucial for long-term progress and preventing complacency or, frankly, self-deception. We're good at making excuses. Top performers across all sorts of fields, like the Lakers basketball team with their detailed post-game analysis, or elite athletes like marathoner Eliud Kipchoge or swimmer Katie Ledecky meticulously tracking her workouts. They all build in time for reflection. It makes you aware of what's actually working, what's not, and where you might be just making excuses for yourself. Without reflection, it's easy to keep making the same mistakes or drift off course.
So, okay, bring this deep dive to a close, the core message from the source material feels incredibly empowering, actually. Building better habits isn't really about seeking quick fixes or making these drastic, unsustainable changes overnight. It's about understanding the predictable nature of habits that cue, craving, response, reward loop, and then leveraging that understanding through the four laws to consciously design your environment and your actions. It's about making good habits obvious, attractive, easy, and satisfying, and doing the inverse for the bad habits you want to break.
And perhaps most importantly, it comes back to that idea of identity. It's about consistently casting those small, everyday votes for the person you want to become. Your identity isn't fixed, it's malleable. It's being shaped by your habits in every single moment. It's less about achieving some distant goal and more about embracing the process of becoming someone aligned with your deepest values and desires.
Thinking about Viktor Frankl's idea that happiness isn't something you pursue directly, but it ensues, often from meaningful action, and how satisfaction in habit building really comes after the action, while it's the desire, the anticipation that initiates it, it makes you wonder, what small vote for your desired identity will you, listening right now, cast today? Knowing that meaningful change doesn't always require radical action, but rather the consistent compounding power of tiny, deliberate improvements. That's where the real change happens.